Welcome to Preeminent Test Prep. Today I'll be taking you through the Math Calculator section of SAT Practice Test 9. I'll be moving quickly and efficiently through this section to give you an idea of how you can improve your speed on the SAT Math Calculator section while maintaining accuracy. Make sure to subscribe and let's go ahead and get into question 1. Alright, question 1. What value of x satisfies the equation 3x plus 3 equals 27? Well, I'm going to subtract 3 from each side so that way I can isolate 3x. 27 minus 3 gives me 24, so I have 3x equals 24. I'm going to divide each side by 3 so I can isolate x. 24 over 3 gives me 8, so my answer will be B, x equals 8. Question 2. 2 units of length used in ancient Egypt were cubits and palms, where 1 cubit is equivalent to 7 palms. The Great Sphinx statue in Giza is approximately 140 cubits long. Which of the following best approximate the length in palms of the Great Sphinx statue? Alright, well I have units of cubits, I have its length in cubits, and I know that 1 cubit, right, I put cubits on the bottom so my cubits cancel, is equal to 7 palms, which I'm going to represent as 7p, right? I'm not multiplying by p or c, those are just my units. So I multiply this out, I'm going to get 140 times 7 palms. My cubits will cancel, so I'll have 140 times 7, and that's going to give me 980 palms. So my answer will be D, 980. Question 3. If 2n over 5 equals 50, what is the value of 2n minus 1? I'm going to multiply each side by 5 to get 2n alone. 10 times 5 will give me 50. So now I have 2n equals 50. I'm going to divide each side by 2 to get rid of the 2 by n and just get n. So now I have 50 over 2 is equal to n. That's going to mean that n is equal to 25. I plug in 25 for n and 2n minus 1. 2 times 25 gives me 50. 50 minus 1 will give me 49. So my answer is going to be B. All right, question 4. Which of the following values of x is not a solution to the equation above? Well, I see I have root x squared equals x. Well, I know that the root x squared has to be positive, right? So I can't have this negative 4, and here's why. If I have this negative 4 squared, right, underneath the square root, that's going to give me negative 4 squared. That's going to give me 16. Root 16 has to equal 4. What does root 16, or what does 4 not equal, right? What does root 16 not equal? It does not equal negative 4, right? Those don't equal. And my x would be negative 4. So answer A is not a solution, which means it is my answer. My answer is A. All right, question 5 and 6. In an experiment, a heated cup of coffee is removed from a heat source, and the cup of coffee is then left in a room that is kept at a constant temperature. The graph shows the temperature in degrees Fahrenheit of the coffee immediately after being removed from the heat source and at 10-minute intervals thereafter. Of the following, which best approximates the temperature in degrees Fahrenheit of the coffee when it's first removed from the heat source? When it's first removed from the heat source, its time is 0, right? So it's going to be a y-intercept. I see my y-intercept is about 195 right here. So my answer is going to be 195, D. Question 6. During which of the following 10-minute intervals does the temperature of the coffee decrease at the greatest average rate? Okay, average rate doesn't mean the greatest drop. It means the greatest drop over the amount of time it took, greatest average drop, right? So what that's going to be is that's going to be my strongest slope down, right? My most negative slope. So that's going to be right here from 0 to 10 minutes. So my answer is going to be A. Question 7. In the figure above, AD intersects BE at C. If x is equal to 100, what's the value of y? All right, well, if x is 100 right here, I see all 3 of my angles in this triangle have to equal 180. I see 100 plus 20 gives me 120. 180 minus 120 gives me 60. So this angle here will be 60, and that means this angle here will also be 60, right? They're going to be the same angle measure. So now to solve for y, I'm going to take that 180, which is all the sum of my angles in this triangle. And I'm going to subtract that 60 and I'm going to subtract 40, right? 60 plus 40 is 100, so 180 minus 100 is going to give me 80 for my y value. So my answer there is going to be C. Question 8. The line graphed in the XY plane below models the total cost in dollars for a cab ride Y in a certain city during non-peak hours based on the number of miles traveled X. According to the graph, what's the cost for each additional mile traveled in dollars of a cab ride? Well, I know each additional mile traveled is going to be 1x, right? So if I go from 0 to 1, I travel 1 additional mile, and I see my cost rises $2. So my answer is going to be A, $2. All right, question 9. Customer purchases at a gas station. On Tuesday, a local gas station had 135 customers. The table above summarizes whether or not the customers on Tuesday purchased gasoline, a beverage, both, or neither. Based on the data in the table, what's the probability that a gas station customer selected at random on that day did not purchase gasoline? Okay, well, my gasoline not purchased row is right here, right? So 50 people didn't purchase gasoline out of our total 135. So it's going to be 50 over 135 is going to be my probability, which is answer choice D. Okay, question 10. Washington High School randomly selected freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior students for a survey about potential changes to next year's schedule. Of students selected for the survey, 1/4 were freshmen and 1/3 were sophomores. Half of the remaining students were juniors, which means that half of the other remaining students, right, were seniors. At 336 students were selected for the survey, how many were seniors? All right, well, we know our total of those selected is 336, right? And we have to solve for S, right? We're going to have S be seniors, right? So it's going to be the total minus all of our other classes, right? So we're going to have that minus that 1/4 who are freshmen plus that 1/3 who are sophomores. And we know that we have to have half, right, and that's all getting multiplied by our total, right? Because that's 1/4 of our total plus 1/3 of our total, right? So we're going to go ahead and do that times 336. And we divide that by 2 because we know that the junior and senior, like the number of juniors and the number of seniors are equal, right? And we know that they make up the rest. So if we divide this by 2, it gives us our number of seniors, which is also our number of juniors, but we don't need juniors. So we can go ahead and do this. We're going to plug it into our calculator, and I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. So we've got 336 minus 1/4 plus 1/3 times 336. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and divide that by 2. 336 minus 196. All right, there we go, 70. So S will equal 70. When I plug all that in my calculator, I'm going to get D. All right, moving on, we've got question 11. Plant A is currently 20 centimeters tall, and plant B is currently 12 centimeters tall. The ratio of heights of plant A to B is equal to the ratio of heights of plant C to D. If plant C is 54 centimeters tall, what's the height of plant D? Okay, well, what I know is I need to solve for plant D. I'm just going to represent that as D, right? So I know plant A is 20 centimeters, and I know plant B is 12. So I'm going to go ahead and write that as plant B being 12 centimeters, right? So I'll have B 12, and then plant A, it says, is 20 centimeters. Okay, I know that that ratio has to equal my B, right, is my second value. So my D, right, is also going to be on top then, right? And that's going to be over plant C, which it says is 54 centimeters tall. The reason I set it up like this is because then I just have to multiply each side by 54 and then solve for my answer. Right? If I put D on the bottom, there's more steps, so I purposely put D on top. So now I'm going to have 54 times 12, all divided by 20 to solve for my height, and I'm going to get 32.4 equals D. So 32.4 equals D, so my answer is going to be A. All right, question 12. Biologists found a new species of pale shrimp at the world's deepest undersea vent, the BB Vent Field. The vent is 3.1 miles below the sea's surface. Approximately how many kilometers below the sea's surface is the vent? All right, well, we have 3.1 miles, 3.1 m being miles. We're going to have to multiply by miles on the bottom to get rid of it, right? So we're going to have kilometers on top. We know that we have 1 kilometer per 0.6214 miles. So now when I simplify this out, it's going to be 3.1 divided by 0.6214. I plug that into my calculator, and I'm going to get 4.98, which is just about 5. So my answer is going to be D. All right, question 13. A cargo helicopter delivers only 100-pound packages and 120-pound packages. For each delivery trip, the helicopter must carry at least 10 packages. So I'm going to call the 120-pound packages L for large, and then small is what I'm going to call the 100-pound packages. So I know that L plus S has to be at least 10 packages, right? So that has to be greater than 10, or greater than or equal to 10. And the total weight of the packages can be at most 1,100 pounds, right? So I got 1,100. Has to be greater than my total pounds of all the packages added up, right? So I'm asked what's the maximum number of 120-pound packages the helicopter can carry per trip. Well, I'm going to set up my inequality. I have 100 S on this part here. I'm going to put that dash through the S so you know it's not a 5. And that's going to also be plus 120 L. I need to solve for L, my large 120-pound packages, and the maximum number. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and find what S is equal to in terms of L up here. I'm going to subtract L from each side, and I see that S is equal to 10 minus L. So I'll plug that in here. So I have 100 times 10 minus L plus 120 L, right, is equal to 1,100, greater than, right? All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and multiply this 100 by this 10. I'm going to get 1,000. 100 times this L, I get minus 100 L, right? Minus 100 L plus 120 L is going to give me 20 L, and I'm going to subtract 1,000 from each side to get rid of this. Subtract 1,000 over here. I'm going to get 100 has to be greater than or equal to 20 L. I'm going to divide each side by 20. 100 divided by 20 will give me that L has to be less than or equal to 5. So 100 over 20, right? That's going to give me 5. So my answer is going to be C. All right, question 14. A company purchased a machine valued at $120,000. The value of the machine depreciates by the same amount each year, so that after 10 years, the value will be $30,000. Which of the following equations gives the value V of the machine in dollars T years after it was purchased? All right, well, we know after 10 years, the value drops from 120,000 to 30,000, right? So we're dropping from 120,000 to 30,000. So we've got 30,000 minus our 120,000 as our original. We see that that's a drop of negative $90,000. So we dropped, that's one too many zeros there, right? We dropped negative $90,000 over the course of 10 years. Well, negative $90,000 divided by 10 years is going to give us negative $9,000 per year, right? So we got negative 9,000. T, I look at my equations, I see A and B each have that, but we start at $120,000. That's our initial value, so our answer is going to be B. Line 15, or I'm sorry, question 15, line M in the XY plane contains points 2, 4, and 0, 1, which of the following is an equation of line M? All right, well, I see I have 1 as my y-intercept because x is 0, so I'm looking for an equation with that. There's only 1, and that's D, so I don't even have to do anything else. My answer is going to be D. All right, question 16. And the expression above, A is a constant. If the expression is equivalent to bx, where b is a constant, what is the value of b? All right, well, here's what I got to do. So I need bx equals some value times x on this equation, right? So what I see here is I have minus x squared. Well, to get rid of that minus x squared and just get it as 0, I need to have a plus x squared. Well, in order to have a plus x squared, this 4x times ax, it's going to give me 4ax squared. I need that then to equal x squared, right? Because that way I have x squared minus x squared, which would get rid of it, right? Give it 0. So 4 times what is going to give me x squared? Well, it's got to be 4 times 1/4. So therefore, I know that a is going to be 1/4. So now that I know that a is going to be 1 over 4x, right? 1 over 4x minus 1 is what that's going to be. Now I can go ahead and solve for everything else. So I see I have plus 4 here times negative 1. That's going to give me minus 4. That'll cancel with my plus 4, right? I already determined that my x squared values will cancel. So now I see I'm going to have minus 4x here, right? So minus 1 times 4x, so minus 4x. And I'm also going to have 4 times 1/4 x. 4 times 1/4 x is going to give me plus 1x. So I have minus 4x plus x, and that's going to give me that negative 3x. Now that negative 3x has to equal bx, therefore I know that b will equal negative 3. So my answer is going to be B. All right, moving on, we've got question 17. If 2w plus 4t equals 14 and 4w plus 5t equals 25, what is the value of 2w plus 3t? All right, well, what I know I can do is I see I have 4w here, right? And what I want to do is I want to solve for w and t so I can plug it into this equation. Well, when I see I have 4w there and 2w here, I know if I multiply my equation right here by 2, and then I set them up in a column, I can subtract one from the other to get rid of my w and solve for t. So that's what I'm going to do. So 2 times 2w plus 4t equals 14. I know that that's going to give me 4w plus 8t equals 28. And now I'm going to go ahead and subtract my other equation, that 4w plus 5t equals 25. And when I subtract that, my w's are going to get rid of each other. I have 18 minus 5t, leaving me with 3t equals 28 minus 25, 3. I know then that t will equal 1 when I divide each side by 3. Now that I know that t equals 1, I can go ahead and plug that into this equation I have here. So I plug in t equals 1, I get plus 4. I subtract 4 from each side, and I see I have 2w equals 10. Therefore, I divide each side by 2, and I get w will equal 5. Now I can go ahead and plug in 5 for w here. 5 for w times 2 will give me 10, and then I have 10 plus 3 times t, which we said is 1, and that is going to give us 10 plus 3, which will give us 13. Our answer there is going to be C. All right, question 18. It's referring to the following information. Jennifer bought a box of crunchy grain cereal. The nutrition facts on the box state that a serving size of a cereal is 3/4 cups and provides 210 calories, 50 of which are calories from fat. In addition, each serving of the cereal provides 180 milligrams of potassium, which is 5% of the daily allowance of adults. If P% of an adult's daily allowance of potassium is provided by X servings of crunchy grain cereal per day, which of the following expresses P in terms of X? All right, well, P is percent of the adult's daily allowance, right? So we can go ahead and use the percent that they give us, which is 5% of the daily allowance for adults, and we can multiply that by X, giving us our answer of P equals 5X, which is B. Question 19. On Tuesday, Jennifer will mix the crunchy grain cereal, which is discussed on the left here. She will mix the crunchy grain cereal with super grain cereal for breakfast. Super grain cereal provides 240 calories per cup. Okay, that's an important distinction. This is per cup. Over here we had our information in 3/4 of a cup. If the total number of calories in 1 cup of her mixture is 270, how much super grain cereal? I'm going to represent super grain as S with that dash through it, and then I'll represent crunchy grain as C. All right, is in 1 cup of the mixture. So how much super grain is in 1 cup of the mixture? Well, I know that super grain, I'm already given it in a cup, so that's going to be my unit, my basic unit I'm going to use, right? So I'll have 240 times S for my super grain, plus I have to convert this to 1 cup. So I'm going to have to multiply by 4/3 to get that to 1, which means I have to multiply my calories then also by 4/3, right? So 4/3 times 210 is going to give me 280. So I'm going to have plus 280 C. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I also know that S plus C equals 1 because it has to equal 1 cup. So now I'm solving for S, so I'm going to get what C equals, and that's going to be 1 minus S. I plug that in by that 280, so now I have 270 equals 240 S plus 280 times 1 minus S, times 1 minus S. Oh, hang on. All right, times 1 minus S. All right, so when I do that, I get 270, right, on this side still, equals 240S, but then I also have that minus 280S. So that minus 280S is going to end up giving me that minus 40S, right? Because I got 240S minus 280S, that gives me minus 40S. I have plus 280 times 1, so that's just plus 280. I'm going to subtract that from each side, and now I'm going to get negative 10 equals negative 40S. I divide each side by negative 40. Negative 10 over negative 40 is equal to 1/4 is S. So my answer is going to be B. All right, moving on. Question 20. Which of the following could be the graph of the number of calories from fat and crunchy grain cereal as a function of the number of 3/4 cup servings of the cereal? Well, we were told that the amount of calories from fat in crunchy grain cereal is 50 calories from fat per serving, right? Per 3/4 cup serving. Well, we know if we don't eat any, we're going to start at 0. Okay, so anything not starting at 0 we can rule out. The only one that starts at 0 is A, so my answer there is going to be A. All right, question 21. The graph of the exponential function h in the xy plane where y equals h of x has a y-intercept of d, where d is a positive constant. Which of the following could define the function h? All right, y-intercept is where x is 0. Now I know that if I put in x as 0 here, right, I get d to the power of 0, which is just going to be whatever d is. But that d then gets multiplied by, I know that d is positive, right? And that's getting multiplied by negative 3. And that's telling me that I'm going to end up with a negative y-intercept, right? I'm going to end up with a negative 3d y-intercept. But I can't have a negative y-intercept because I'm told my y-intercept is d and that it's positive. So I can go ahead and get rid of a. Now if I plug in 0 here, or if I plug in 0 for x, right? Now I have 3 times 0 times d. That's also not even an exponential function, which we're told it is, so we can actually go ahead and get rid of b anyways. And now I look at d. If I plug in 0 here, I get negative 0 to the 3rd power. That's going to give me 0. 0 times d. It's going to give me 0. That's not a positive y-intercept then. I look at my last equation. I plug in 0 for x. 3 to the power of 0 is actually equal to 3, or I'm sorry, is equal to 1. 3 to the power of 0 is going to give me 1, so I get 1 times d. My answer is going to be D for 21. All right, now I can go ahead and move on, or I'll explain this one a little bit more. So D for answer choice D, right? I plug in 0 for my x. 3 to the power of 0 is equal to 1. Okay, so now I have 1 times D, whatever my y-intercept is. So my answer there is D. Okay, moving on, we got question 22. The weights in pounds for 15 horses in a stable were reported, and the mean, median, range, and standard deviation from the data was found. The horse with the lowest reported weight was actually found to weigh 10 pounds less than the reported weight. What value remains unchanged if the 4 values are reported using the corrected weight? Well, what's not going to change is the median, because it was already the lowest weighted horse, right? It had the least weight, and now it just has less weight. That doesn't affect our median, though, because our median is just the middle term. Okay, 23. Near the end of a U.S. cable news show, the host invited viewers to respond to a poll on the show's website that asked, do you support the new federal policy discussed during the show? At the end of the show, the host reported that 28% responded yes and 70% responded no. Which of the following best explains why the results are unlikely to represent the sentiments of the population of the United States? Okay, A is incorrect because the percentages do not add up to 100, so any possible conclusions from the poll are invalid. No, that's not why. It's because, all right, the reason that it's not going to be accurate is going to be because it was on one U.S. cable news show. It's their audience, right? That show could be biased. We don't know, okay? So it's not a random sample of the population of the United States. Our answer is going to be B. We can get rid of C and D, move on. Question 24, if f of x equals 5 times x squared minus 3 and f of x plus a equals 5x squared plus 30x plus 42, what's the value of a? Okay, so what I see here off the bat, I see my big difference is I have plus 30x, but I have no x value here. So what I'm looking at is I need to have 5 times x plus a. We don't know what a is yet, right? Squared minus 3, and that's going to equal our other equation, right? So I look at this, I see I have plus a, so I need to solve for a. Alright, well I see I have plus 30x in this equation. So I know that when I do this, right, when I square this, when I do x plus a times x plus a, I know I'm going to get my a times x right here, and I'm also going to get a times x here. So I know that I'm going to get 2 times ax. So 2 times whatever a is times x, but I also know I have this 5 that drops down, right? So I have this 5 times 2 times ax. I combine that and I get 10ax. Well, I know that that has to equal 30x, therefore I divide each side by 10. 30 over 10 is 3. I get 3x equals ax. I divide each side by x, and I see that a is equal to 3. So my answer there is going to be C. Okay, now I can move on to question 25. 25, if sine of x is equal to a, well, which of the following must be true for all values of x? Alright, when I see this question, I see my answer choices, the first thing I'm thinking is the sine of x equals a, well then that means that the cosine of 90 minus x, right, which is the other angle in that right triangle, will also have to equal a. So I know that my answer is going to be C, and that is a relationship that you should really try to memorize for the SAT. Alright, moving on, I've got question 26. h of x equals negative 16x squared plus 100x plus 10. Quadratic function above models the height above the ground h in feet of the projectile 8 seconds after it had been launched vertically. If y equals h of x is graphed in the xy plane, which of the following represents the real meaning of the positive x-intercept of the graph? Alright, the positive x-intercept of the graph is where the height is 0. Okay, so after it's launched, when it falls back to 0, that's our positive x-intercept. So that is the time at which the projectile not reaches its maximum height, but the time at which it hits the ground, right? The height is 0 at that point. So our answer is D. Question 27. In the xy plane, the graph of the polynomial function f crosses the x-axis at exactly 2 points, a of 0 and b of 0, where a and b are both positive. That's important. Which of the following could define f? All right, well, if both my zeros are positive, I know here in this equation, my 0 will be a and my 0 will be b, right? I got to flip the sign, right? So I have this is negative, which means x will equal positive b, and I have x minus a, which means that x will equal positive a. I see those are both positive zeros, so my answer will be a. Question 28, if y equals 3x squared plus 6x plus 2 is graphed in the xy plane, which of the following characteristics of the graph is displayed as constant or coefficient in the equation? Right off the bat, I'm thinking y-intercept, right? If I put in 0 for my x, that's going to be 0. I put in 0 for my x here, that's going to be 0. And I see my y-intercept then is going to be 2. So my answer is going to be C. Question 29. We've got minimum wage on our y-axis, years since 1940 x-axis. The scatter plot above shows the federal mandated minimum wage every 10 years between 1940 and 2010. A line of best fit is shown, and its equation is y equals 0.096x minus 0.488. What does the line of best fit predict about the increase in the minimum wage over the 70-year period? All right, each year between 1940 and 2010, the average increase in minimum wage was $0.096. Yes, that is going to be our answer. And I'm going to show you why the other ones are false real quick here. Each year between 1940 and 2010, the average increase in minimum wage was almost $0.50. Well, in that case, the minimum wage would have gone up about $35. The graph doesn't show that. It shows that it's gone up about 6 from 1940 to 2010. See, every 10 years between 1940 and 2010, the average increase in minimum wage was $0.096. Here's why this is wrong. This every 10 years messes it up. Because if we think about it then, 70 years later, that would just be that 0.096 times 7, which would only be about 70 cents, right? And that's not how much it increased. It increased by more like $7 or $6, right? So that one's wrong. And then right here, every 10 years between 1940 and 1910, the average increase in the minimum wage was $0.488. No, that's not what the line of best fit is saying at all, right? Because once again, you know, in that case, we put in 7 because 70 years, right? multiply it by that, and you're still only seeing an increase of $3.50. That's not what it shows, right? A is what it shows, so answer is A. Okay, are we on 30? We are on 30. Okay. Ice cream sales versus temperature. The scatter plot above shows a company's ice cream sales, D in dollars, and the high temperature T in degrees Celsius on 12 different days. A line of best fit for the data is also shown. Which of the following could be an equation of the line of best fit? All right. So this one, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the slope. So I'm going to pick a point here, and I'm going to pick a point farther away because there aren't any that really intersect real well with my y-axis. So I'll pick this one because why not? So we'll go ahead and trace it over. We see we got 800 there, 500 here. So we rose by 300. So our rise is 300. How much did we run? We went from 12 to 22. That's a difference of 10. So we see that's going to be roughly 30, right? Our slope will be roughly 30. Closest thing to that's going to be 33. I'll take it. So now one thing to note, this isn't 0 here, right? This is 10. So if we were to keep going back, 0 is going to be more like right here. And if we kept going down, right, we also have 300 here and not 0. So if we were to keep going down, right, we see that our y-intercept is not going to be anywhere near 300, right? It's just going to keep dropping, and then by the time that we get to that 0, it's going to be more between 0 and 100. So I know my answer is going to have to be D, and I can plug in a point and quick check it, right? Let's say I put in 12, because why not? We put in 12 for T, 12 times, we'll just use 30 because it's easier. 12 times 30 is going to give me 12 times 30 should give me 360 plus 84, right? It's going to give me right around this range. So that's going to be good enough. Answer's going to be D. All right, question 31. In the xy plane above, the circle has center HK and radius 10. What's the value of K? All right, radius 10 tells me here to here is 10, and it tells me here to here is 10. That tells me I have an isosceles triangle, which means these two angles here are the same. I can drop this down and use this to solve for K, since this will be 0y here. Now I know that I have from 4 to 20, right? And I know that that's a difference of 16. All of that's going to equal 16, which means I split this down the middle, and I'm going to get 8 right here. So now I'm going to use the Pythagorean theorem to solve for K. I'm going to go 10 squared minus 8 squared equals K squared. 10 squared minus 8 squared is going to give me 36 equals K squared. I'm going to square root each side, and I'm going to see that K is going to equal 6. So my answer there is going to be 6. Question 32 is going to be below it. In the xy plane, line L has y-intercept negative 13. I'll go ahead and put that in an equation. And it's perpendicular to the line with the equation y equals negative 2/3 x. Okay, well that means that my slope then, right, it has to flip the sign and then be the reciprocal. So the 3 goes up here, the 2 goes down. So now I've got 3 over 2x minus 13. That's my equation. If the point 10b is on line L, what is the value of b? So I'm just plugging in 10 for x. I got 1.5 times 10 is going to be 15. 15 minus 13 is going to mean that y is equal to 2. So my answer is going to be 2. All right, now we got question 33. I've got a table with blood type and rhesus factor. Human blood can be classified into 4 common blood types, A, B, AB, and 0. It is also characterized by the presence, positive or absence of rhesus factor. The table above shows the distribution of blood type and rhesus factor for a group of people. If one of those people who is rhesus negative, so we're only considering this row here, right, this row here, is chosen at random, the probability that that person has blood type B is 1 over 9, and we use that to solve for x. All right, well, if the probability they have B is 1 over 9, we know that 1 over 9 then, here, let me rewrite that, see if I can get this. All right, so 1 over 9 then, we see that blood type B is 2, right? So that has to be 2 over our total for this whole row, right? We know that that has to be 18 because those fractions, right, 1/9 is equal to 2 over 18. So now when we do that, we know that this x plus 1 plus 2 plus 7 has to equal 18. Well, 7 plus 2 is 9, 9 plus 1 is 10. 18 minus 10 will give me 8 equals x. So my answer there is going to be 8. All right, question 34. Based on the graph above, in how many of the games played did the soccer team score goals equal to the median number of goals for 29 games? All right, to solve for my median, I see I have 8 in this column of 1, right? So my frequency of 8, I'm going to go ahead and take away those 8. So now I got to take away 8 over here. I take away 1. 1 plus 2, I just took away 3 then in total. 3 plus 3, now I've taken away 6, and then I'll take away these 2, right? Get rid of those ones. Now I see I've got from 6 to 2, so I'll go ahead and take away 4 right here, and then I got to take away 4 over here. I'll go from 9 to 5, get rid of these ones, right? I see my median is going to be at 2. I'm asked in how many of the games did they score goals equal to the median. I know my median's 2. I see that in 9 games they scored that many. So my answer there will be 9. Okay, now I can go ahead and move on to question 35. Gazella would owe $15,500 in taxes each year if she were not eligible for any tax deductions. This year, she is eligible for tax deductions that reduce the amount of taxes she owes by $2,325. If these tax deductions reduce the taxes Gisela owes this year by D%, what is the value of D? All right, well, how much is she paying this year? Well, that's going to be $15,500 minus $2,325. I'm going to plug that into my calculator real quick. 15,500 minus $2,325. That's going to give me $13,175. That's how much she's paying this year, okay? All right. Well, I know that she got a tax reduction, right? So her new amount that she has to pay in taxes is that. The amount she would have had to pay if she didn't have those deductions was $1,550. So I go ahead and set up in my new minus old over old format for finding percent change, right? So I do that, and I see that her tax deduction then, when I plug this into my calculator, is going to be 15%, right? It's negative 0.15. We multiply that by 100 to get 15%. So my answer for D will be 15. I'll write that over here. All right, so 15%. Value of D will be 15. All right, question 36. 3/4 x minus 1/2 y equals 12. Ax minus by equals 9. The system of equations above has no solutions. That means their slopes are equal. If a and b are constants, what is the value of a over b? I should mention it means their slopes are equal and their y-intercepts are not, right? Just to clarify. Okay, I'm in standard form here, which means that my slope is going to be negative a over b, but really what I'm looking at here is I see that if I multiply 9 by 3 over 4, right? Or if I multiply, if I multiply 12 by 3 over 4, I get 9, right? So if I multiply my top equation all by 3 over 4, I'm going to get my bottom equation. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and multiply 12 by 3 over 4. I see I get 9, right? I multiply negative 1/2 by 3 over 4, but I have this negative here, so I don't really have to consider the negative. So I just have 1/2 times 3 over 4. 1 times 3 gives me 3, all over 2 times 4, which is 8. So I have minus 3, 8y, which means that my b value then is just going to equal 3 over 8, right? And now I have my a value then is going to be 3/4 times 3/4. 3 times 3 gives me 9. 4 times 4 gives me 16. So I have 9 over 16x, right? So the value of a over b then is going to be 9 over 16 divided by b, which is the same as multiplying by 8/3. Now when I do that, I see that I have a 3 here. I can cancel that to be a 1, cancel this to be a 3. I can cancel my 8 to be a 1. I can cancel my 16 to be a 2 then, and I have 3 over 2 as my answer for 36. Okay, moving on to question 37. All right, we've got data table. The table shows the number of international tourist arrivals rounded to the nearest of a tenth of a million to the top 9 tourist destinations in both 2012 and 2013. Based on the information given in the table, how much greater in millions was the median number of international tourist arrivals to the top 9 tourist destinations in 2013 than the median number in 2012 to the nearest tenth of a million? All right, so I'm finding difference in medians. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of, I know I have 9, so I just gotta find my top 4, get rid of those, and then my next highest is gonna be my median. So I'll go ahead and get rid of these. I see my next highest is going to be 46.4. I go ahead and get rid of the other top 4. I see that's 47.7. I do 47.7 minus 46.4 to get 1.3 as my difference. So my answer there is going to be 1.3. All right, question 38. The number of international tourist arrivals in Russia in 2012 was 13.5% greater than in 2011. The number of international tourist arrivals in Russia was k million more in 2012 than 2011. What is the value of k to the nearest integer? All right, well, if in 2012 it was 13.5% greater than in 2011, right? So I'd add my 2011 number times 1.135. It's going to give me my 2012 number. What I can do is I can divide that 2012 number then by 1.135 to get my 2011 number. So that's what I'm going to do. In 2012, I see Russia had 24.7 million people, but we can just use 24.7. We divide that by 1.135, and that gives me 21.76. All right, so now I see that I have that. Now I'm asked the number of international tourist arrivals in Russia was k million more in 2012 than in 2013. I know in 2012 it was 24.7. So I do 24.7 minus that 21.76 that we got from our other equation, and I'll just quick put that in, right? So 2011, we had 21.7. Okay, we see that that difference is going to be about 3. So we're going to do that 24.7 now. 24.7 minus 21.7. That gives us about 3. So our answer there, rounded to the nearest integer, is 3. Thank you for watching Preeminent Test Prep. Make sure to subscribe, like, and share, as we will be releasing more videos to help you prepare for the SAT.